No, running again. Nappa's braced, he's set, he sees the kick coming, and then the kid sends him into a mountain anyway. Which means for 1 second, the 4-year-old is over the... No. That puts a crying preschooler above every trained adult on the entire... Oh, you're here. Good. Sit down. I need a witness. Because I've run this 4 separate times against the actual manga and it keeps coughing up the same completely unhinged answer. And if I don't say it to another living person, I'm gonna start seeing power levels when I blink. Somebody on that field hit 9,000. For real. Their actual power. No technique, no borrowed multiplier, them. And it wasn't Goku. It was the kid. Why is it the sobbing 4-year-old and not the trained warrior standing right next to him? Let's break it down. This is Decoding Dragon Ball, where the little numbers do the talking, and it's on me to earn them. Manga only. No anime filler gumming up the math. Here we go. Real quick for anyone just wondering it, and if you know the Saiyan Saga by heart, hang with me for 30 seconds. The good part needs the runway. Raditz, Goku's brother, the first Saiyan we ever meet, loses his fight, and on the way out he leaves a threat. 2 more Saiyans, both stronger than him, 1 year away. Goku dies winning that fight, which it's classic Goku. He wins the battle, but he loses the pulse. So he spends the year training in the afterlife. Piccolo, meanwhile, drags Goku's 4-year-old, Gohan, out into the wild to beat the buried potential out of him. Everybody's leveling up, because the 2 guys inbound erase entire planets for a paycheck. And the one tool the manga hands us to measure any of this? The Scouter. Every so often it just blurts out a real hard number out loud, mid-scene. Those are my anchors. Everything else I build off them. So let's start with the freebies. Bulma patches up Raditz's old Scouter, points it around the room, and these 5 just read out, handed to us, no math for me. Roshi, 139, Krillin, 206, Tien, 250, Yamcha, 177, Piccolo, the strongest man on the planet, 329. And look, even the freebies gossip if you let them. Krillin at 206 is sitting around 48% over the master who trained him, which, respectfully, is a rough day to be Roshi. Tien's 21% up on Krillin, Yamcha's the run, with Tien about 42% over him. Piccolo towers 32% over Tien. That's your lineup. Handed to us gift wrap. But here's where I come in, because there's one fighter the Scouter doesn't read, the kid. So how do you measure a number nobody prints? You watch how people treat him. After 6 months surviving alone in the wild, Piccolo starts sparring Gohan for real. And it tells us that Piccolo has to block. He can't just shrug off the kid's punches. He has to actually defend. And that specific gap, where fighters forced to respect their blows instead of tanking them, sits right around 75%. Work backward from Piccolo and Gohan lands at 188. The first real number I've built you, and it puts the kid almost dead last. Not old enough for a library card. Tattoo 188 somewhere, because every answer today is hiding inside it. The Saiyans land, and the very first thing the manga does is tell you to stop trusting the tool it's been handing you. Nappa scans the group and calls the number out. Gohan at 981, Krillin at 1083, Piccolo at 1220, and Vegeta immediately tells him to ignore all of it. Now, you might reasonably go, hang on, why hand us numbers and then say don't trust them? And that right there is the single most important sentence in the entire fight. So stick with me. Vegeta says ignore them because these fighters can suppress. Bury the real number under a fake one, so the Scouter only ever prints what they let it. Which means every number here is a floor, never a ceiling. The least a guy's showing, not the most he's got. And yeah, that's inconvenient because it means I can't just read a screen and call it a day. The screen is lying on purpose. I've got to pull the real values out of how people fight. But to do that, I need one honest yardstick. One thing on this battlefield that physically cannot lie about how strong it is. And Nappa, God bless him, reaches into a case and plants 6 of them into the dirt. The seeds sprout into Saibamen. And here's the number that cracks the whole video open. They're grown to a fixed 1200. And before you ask how I know that one isn't just me fudging it, it's stated they're built to match Raditz, whose 1200 got nailed down last episode. So that's a documented anchor, not a vibe. A Saibamen is a walking, lunging tape measure locked at 1200 that can't suppress, can't sandbag, and can't lie. Every swing taken at 1 hands me an honest read, finally. Tien's up first, and watch what he actually does because it changes the number. He doesn't just walk up and win, he tags the thing with a blast first, rattles it, then takes it apart. So I'm not scaling a clean duel, I'm scaling a guy who rigged the fight in his favor first. A win that comfortable over a 1200 puts Tien around 50% over it, so 1800. Which, remember, the Scouter had at 250 a year ago. That jump is the training year, printed as a number. Then Yamcha steps in because Krillin's already cashed his 1 revive and the Dragon Balls don't do refills. And I've got to pump the brakes and defend this man, because the manga frames Yamcha and the Saibamen as an even fight. And I already hear some of you, okay, so they're even, that's literally what the page shows, why are you fighting it? Fair. On the surface, totally fair, but come on. These things are sentient produce. They clawed out of the soil 90 seconds ago. You're telling me a guy with Yamcha's tournament resume is genuinely dead even with an angry houseplant? I refuse. And I think if you actually think about it, you refuse too. So here's the read that makes more sense. The Saibamen's a hair above him, about 25% up, which off that 1200 drops Yamcha's honest base to 960. And the fight only looks even because Yamcha's covering the gap with pure skill against a thing too brainless to have any. He proves it too, waits, finds the window, and drives a Kamehameha through it. The blast scales at around 2112, about 76% over the Saibamen, a clean kill. And then the corpse lunges, latches on, and self-destructs. That's a purpose-built last resort, so I put it at roughly double the Saibamen, 2400. And against Yamcha's 960, that's 2.5 times his entire being going off at point blank. Nobody survives 2.5 times themselves. So Yamcha wins the duel and dies to the loser anyway. And the number's the thing that tells you it was never ever survivable. Respect the man, the math already does. Krillin watches his friend die and snaps, scattering bullet across the whole field. And here's how I pin it. Watch Nappa flinch. He recoils, throws a hand up. He does not do that for nothing. But first, I need Krillin's real base, and I get it from a tiny detail. Krillin flat out says he threw everything into that shot, and Tien never said any such thing, which is exactly why Tien reads a notch stronger, about 25% up. That puts Krillin at 1440. And now I finally get a real one, because Nappa's wrestling level is official. The Daizenshuu 7 guidebook pins him at 4000, and I could kiss it, because it anchors the entire middle of this fight. Since Nappa braces like the blast is a genuine threat, I read it about 25% under him, 3200. Okay, indulge me for 1 second. Because this is the exact thing that has me doing math at 2 in the morning instead of sleeping like a functional adult. 3200 of Krillin's 1440 works out to precisely 2.2 times, which is the multiplier a Kamehameha runs, and wouldn't you know it, later material goes and officially files the scattering bullet as a Kamehameha variant. So my completely independent math, built off nothing but a big man flinching, backed into a classification the franchise has already made. That little click, that's the whole reason I do this. I'd frame it if I can figure out how to frame a feeling. Anyway, sorry, where were we? Right, the body count. The wave clears the field. Piccolo mops up the Strangler, and both Saiyans just stand there, not a scratch. So Nappa decides he's done spectating and powers up. Full aura, the whole light show. And I read the surge at a clean 50% over his wrestling number, landing him at 6000. And now it stops being a fight and starts being a cleanup. He rips Tien's arm clean off through the guard, which is when Chaozu, another guidebook gift, the Daizenshuu pins him at 610, flies onto Nappa's back, says goodbye to his best friend in the world, and detonates every last scrap of himself at once. Nappa steps out of the smoke, slightly singed. And here's where the math stops being fun. For a full-body suicide blast to leave Nappa barely marked, I have to scale Chaozu's explosion at around 3428, which off his little 610 base is a 5.6 times detonation. He spent everything it was, at more than 5 times his own power, and it wasn't enough to leave a mark. And because he's already used his one revival, that's it. That's forever. The number is a eulogy, 5.6 times over, and not enough. Down to Piccolo and Krillin now, and they throw a combined shot to buy breath. Krillin's Kamehameha I scale at 3168, the same neighborhood as a scatter, and Piccolo finally drops the mask, because that suppressed 1220 was always a lie. His real base is documented too, Daizenshuu 7 again, at 3500. This man has been underreporting himself by nearly 3000 points, in front of 2 life scouters, the entire fight. The strongest guy on Earth is quietly its biggest liar, and honestly, respect. I scale his double demon burst at 50% over that true base, at 5250. And stacked with Krillin's beam, the combined blast comes to 8148, about 40% over Nappa, the closest anyone comes all day. He slips it anyway. And then Tien, one arm, dying, pours what's left of his life into a Kikoho, the tri-beam. And here's the fight's first 9000, but watch where it comes from, because this is the entire case. I scale that Kikoho as a 5 times multiplier off Tien's 1800 base, which gets you to 9000, and it fits perfectly, because the Kikoho famously burns lifespan, not ki. That's how a guy stuck at 1800 throws a 9000 size punch. He's paying for it in years of his own life, but that's the whole point. The punch is 9000. It lands about 50% over Nappa and makes the Saiyan flinch for the first time all day. Tien himself never budged from 1800. The number on screen is the move, not the man. Nobody's actual power touched 9000 here. A technique borrowed it for one shot and built him his life for the loan, and it's still not enough. Nappa tanks it, and Tien dies from the effort of throwing. So bank that. The fight's first 9000 was a multiplier stacked on a small base, and it cost a grown legend everything just to fake it for a second, because the second one is about to work nothing like it. Goku's inbound, Piccolo feels it, and Vegeta's scouter reads the approaching power at over 5000. That number's straight from the manga, not me. Nappa panics, asks if the thing's busted, and Vegeta, the one guy here who understands suppression cold, quietly figures 5000 is probably just the floor. And he's right. He's completely right. And he is looking in exactly the wrong direction, because the biggest hidden number on the whole battlefield isn't the guy inbound from 100 miles out. It's the 4-year-old 10 feet to his left, face down in the dirt. And look, I'm not dunking on Vegeta here, because if I'd been standing on the field, I'd make the identical read. You would have, we all would have. Who on earth looks at the sobbing kindergartner and thinks there's the apex predator? Nobody. Which is exactly why the number is about to embarrass every single one of us. Krillin drops. Nappa, bored, turns to finish the kid. Piccolo screams, and Nappa swings. But so does Gohan. The kid throws his whole tiny body into one kick, catches Nappa flush, and launches the strongest thing on that battlefield off his feet and into a mountain. And here's the detail that closes my entire case. Do not skip past this one. Nappa was braced. No distraction. No cheap shot. He saw it coming. He was set for it. And it landed anyway. Which means for one real instant, a 4-year-old physically outmuscled him. I read Gohan's base at 1200, slotting him right between Yamcha and Krillin, which the surrounding numbers back up on their own. And that kick launches him to 50% over Nappa, 9,000. But look where it comes from. Because this is the exact mirror image of Tien, and it's the whole reason I dragged you here. There's no technique, no Kikoho, no multiplier. No move borrowing power and changing interest. That kick is just Gohan's own body, which means 9,000 isn't a punch he threw. It's him. His actual power level for 1 second is 9,000. I scale it as a 7.5 times eruption straight off that 1200 base. Raw. Nothing stacked on top. And that's the answer to who. Line my two 9,000 up side by side. Tien's was a 5 times move bolted onto an 1800 guy. The attack hit the number. Tien never did. Gohan's 9,000 was Gohan. So out of everyone on that field, every trained adult, every grizzled veteran, the strongest man on the field, the only fighter whose real, actual, unborrowed power level genuinely touched 9,000 is the crying 4-year-old nobody was even looking at. So that's the who. Now, how? How does a kid with a 1200 base outpunch a number that killed Tien just to fake? And this is where every number I've built you finally points at one idea. Everybody else on this field has a dial. A strength they crank up and down on command, which is the whole reason they can suppress it. Why the scatter reads them low. Why Tien had to climb to 9,000 rung by rung and pay the toll with his life. Gohan doesn't really have a dial. He's got a landmine. His power doesn't go up. It goes off. Terror pulls the pin. The whole thing detonates at once. No technique, nothing stacked on top, and for 1 second, a preschooler is the strongest living thing on the field. Because here's the cruel part. A landmine doesn't stay lit. Nappa gets a furious and fires to erase them, and Piccolo, the Demon King, dives in front of the blast and takes the shot meant for a child. He goes down shielding Gohan. And up on the lookout, Kami dies in the same instant because the two of them share one life. So every Dragon Ball on Earth goes dark at once, and now all of it is permanent. Yamcha, Chaozu, Tien locked in for good, no takebacks. And Grief pulls the pin one last time. Gohan fires a Masenko, and here, the scatter gives us a real one. Vegeta watches the spike jump, from that suppressed 981 all the way to 2800. I scale the beam itself off that spike, landing it at around 5600. Nappa swats it out of the air like a gnat. And the second the emotion drains out of him, Gohan collapses right back to 1200. He can't call it back. He can't do it on command. He barely even knows it happened. And that finishes the answer to why. With the cruelest little symmetry in the whole fight, the only fighter who actually hit 9,000 is also the only one who can't do it again. Tien chose his 9,000, eyes open, knowing the bill. Gohan's was realer than anyone's on that field, and it was never his to command. He didn't climb there. He got thrown by the worst moment of his short life. And the power walked right back out of the door the second the fear did. The manga sprints past it in a single panel, but the number sat there the whole time, quietly confessing that the strongest fighter on the field was the smallest person on it. Nappa raises his boot to crush the kid where he lies. Krillin can't reach him. Piccolo's gone, and then a shadow drops down. The boot never lands because Goku is finally here, and that's exactly where we pick it up next time, with the man himself stepping onto the field, and Vegeta about to read out the number the entire world remembers screaming about. But now you know what my math found buried underneath it. By the time Goku shows up to make 9,000 famous, his own 4-year-old already got there first. For real, no multiplier, no borrowed technique, and not one soul on that field, or in the audience, ever noticed. If you think I botched the number, the comments are right there. Come take a swing.